Well, right now, senators are back to work on President Trump's sweeping agenda for his second term. They are now in the what's called the vote-a-rama stage of the sausage making. Senators will offer these changes before a final vote that's expected to be close. And joining us now is Republican Congressman Ryan Zinke of Montana. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us again here in the Situation Room. So as it stands right now, do you think there is enough Republican support in the Senate and in the House for this bill to pass by President Trump's July 4th deadline?
You know, I do, although I think the vote's going to be narrow. Yeah, kind of a tongue-in-cheek, probably too much salt and not enough pepper for some tastes. But I do think it'll pass. I'm thinking probably J.D. Vance is on standby. It'll go to the Senate. You know, and the argument is for some, it doesn't go further enough as far as, you know, the fiscal discipline. And the argument on the other side, it goes too far. So, you know, overall, if one side is too much, the other side is too little, I think probably it will pass. The bottom line is on the taxes. I think that's the biggest concern. Look, if Congress doesn't do anything, America is going to get saddled the largest tax increase in this nation's history. The economy is not doing well. This bill, you know, relies on growth, a lot of it. And if the economy does grow or it turns around, we get our tariffs into, I would say, our long-term trade deals and interest rates come down, I think we're getting pretty good shape.
You say the economy is not doing well. Tell us more about your thinking behind that.
Well, I think a lot of people are struggling. You know, interest rates are high. Mortgage rates are at the point where a lot of people can't buy a home. I think people are living, you know, paycheck to paycheck. You see the borrowing rate. So I think the economy is pretty tough for a lot of people. Now, can the economy turn around? Absolutely. This bill, at least on taxes and research and development, there's a lot of good parts to the bill. You know, I hear a lot about Medicaid. And look, if you're a kid, you're a mom, and you're disabled, you know, no problem. Your benefits aren't going to change. But if you're able to work and you choose not to work, you know, 80 hours a month of work, to include, you know, volunteering at a pantry, I don't think that's too much to ask. Mm-hmm. You know, the states probably should pay a little more of their share, because when you have, you know, a deal where you're only paying 5 cents on the dollar, and the federal government's picking up, you know, so much incentivizing Medicaid expansion. But I think to a degree that that has been mitigated. Not a lot of changes on the state match. So again, for some, it doesn't go deep enough on savings. For others, it goes too far. I think it'll pass.
Well, as you know, North Carolina Senator Thom Tillis, he was one of the only 2 Republicans to vote against advancing the president's signature legislation. He says he couldn't support this because of the cuts to Medicaid and the impact it would have in his state. Let's listen to that.
What do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there?
And the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, estimates that nationally the Senate version of Trump's agenda bill would leave 11.8 million more people without health insurance by the year 2034. Congressman, you just were talking about how the economy is not doing well, that people are living paycheck to paycheck. They're going through a rough time. Democrats argue that this bill is basically taking from the poor to give tax breaks to the rich. How do Republicans explain this to their constituents?
Well, living paycheck to paycheck is on the premise that you're working. But look, if you're an able-bodied male and you choose to sit on the couch and not work, and you're getting Medicaid, that's taking benefits from someone else who needs it. And there's 36 trillion reasons why we got to look at fraud, waste, and abuse. And if you're abusing the system where you can work but choose not to, I mean, that's fraud. That's abuse. So yeah, if a lot of people in North Carolina choose not to work, I would say, look, get a job. But you know, again,
right.
if you're
I just want to be clear really quick, just so our viewers understand, because this is very fast moving and there's lots of changes. That, you know, there was the House version, then the Senate made changes as well, and they made changes to the tax provider, like, so what states can levy on the providers that then the federal funds match. And so his concern is that now states won't be getting as much federal funding for Medicaid, and that people are going to lose out on Medicaid coverage as a result. Are you comfortable with that?
Well, okay. So if the federal government is picking up 95% of a bill for insurance, the states need to pay their share. There has to be an incentive at the state level to make sure that you don't expand it beyond what our budget can sustain. So yeah, I think the states should pick up more. So if that means if North Carolina has to pick up more of their share, then I think they should. But remember, we have Obamacare. That was supposed to be the end all for insurance. That didn't work, and so a lot of people choose not to work, and they're still getting Medicaid. And then the states, they should pick up their share. Now, is it as much as what the House would like? Not even close. You saw Lisa Murkowski kind of say, no, Alaska's going to get hurt. So, but I think the states also have a burden in this. And look, when the federal government is picking up the tab at little from the states, what's going to happen is you're going to expand,
Yeah.
expand. That's why we
Right.
have the budget we do. So I think it's the correct move.
Just to follow up, a small percentage of those receiving Medicaid don't work. And so, a majority work at least part-time when it comes to Medicaid. So can you say for certain that no one who is eligible for Medicaid, who works or works part-time, will not be impacted by this? Are you comfortable with that? Do you feel that for certain?
Part-time is you have to, the standard is you have to do 80 hours a month. So by definition of part-time is if it's 5 hours a month, yeah, you're not going to be able to have access to Medicaid.
But there's reasons
But
because people are
bill is
caregivers
written in
and
the
that
House.
kind of
Again, we
thing.
haven't seen what the Senate, we haven't seen what the amendments in the Senate, should offer. But the House version, which I understand is going to be pretty close to what the Senate is, that was a standard is 80 hours. But look, you can work at a food pantry and
Right.
get 80 hours.
Let me
So,
follow up with you very quickly, because obviously, what matters here is what the everyday American thinks about what's happening here in Washington. I know you've been listening to your constituents. You had concerns about a provision that was in the Senate version that then was taken out. There was recent polling that shows across the board the net favorable rating of President's Big Beautiful Bill Act is deeply underwater. I mean, it's negative across the board, but your party is still plowing ahead. Does that concern you?
Well, I think that's a lot of disinformation too. You saw the opposition saying, "Oh, it's going to gut Medicaid. It's going to cut Medicare. People are going to
this
get
is
kicked off
polling
the rolls."
across the
That's
board.
simply not the case. But I can tell you what I think is important though is the bond market doesn't lie, and we're going to have to bring interest rates down, which is no one is talking about because remember, interest rates affect not only the government over $1 trillion, but also how much you pay in your mortgage. So a lot of this exercise, the bond market doesn't lie. At the end of the day, do we show that we have any savings? Is growth going to be enough? Because if interest rates continue to rise, that's a tax on everybody, and that's a tax on the economy. Mortgage rates get more expensive. That means you're not going to have a chance to buy the house, or your car loan's going to be more expensive. Your credit card is getting more expensive. So if this bill results, and I think it will, higher growth, and the economy turns around, I think it's a good thing.
All right, Congressman Ryan Zinke, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Come on to Montana.
I'd love to do that. I've never been. Would love to go vacation there. Thanks so much. We'll see if your prediction that this will pass by July 4th comes true. We'll be watching it closely.
Well, never vote against a seal on a mission. I think it's going to pass.
All right, we shall see. Thank you.